All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't know what episode it is because we're just continuing to roll and have on dope guests from all across the world. It's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live all the way over here from Europe. My boy, Coach Jay, couldn't be with us tonight because, again, he's still currently playing, and I'm enjoying retirement, having all this free time. All right, so again, remember, always hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we can continue to have this thing grow and continue to have you guys learn from some of the top coaches in the industry. But nevertheless to say, we've got a GOAT guest with us tonight. We got a Coach Edward, a.k.a. E.T. He's a true student of movement. His personal practice and physical aptitude speak for themselves. He has a knack for breaking things down into easily learnable steps. He is a father, husband, and coach. Strength of an ox, prowess of a cheetah, helping people release their inner athletic potential, rotational movement training, and rope flow. Has plenty of coaching and courses that can be found at ET Strength. Coach, welcome and thank you for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored you reached out and sparked the conversation. I love podcasts. I think they're the best way to learn and grow. And we've had, 3 minutes together so far. So I'm excited to see where the conversation goes.
I'm super excited about it because, one, we're new in the podcast game and we're kind of seeing what the other side of life is like after sports. All right, so trying to see what it's like to navigate this side. But what got you into this industry? And I hear a chicken in the background. And I saw you. I was looking through your Instagram and everything. You got cows and everything too. So you talk about strength of an ox, like you with them, so you know what the strength is like.
Yeah, actually, there's one in the garage right now that shouldn't be here.
They call it, right?
That's for sure, bro. That's for sure. It's a different kind of beast in that metro area. So grew up really fat and basically diabetic by the time I was 13. Had lost a bunch of weight, and in that first run I took, I had this epiphany moment that was essentially what I believe to be my first real moment of presentness in my life, where I was in my body. I felt like, oh, I have control over this thing, and it affects my mindset, how I move and whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it was like that first kind of glimpse into it. And I just became obsessed from there. I first was obsessed with losing weight. And then I wanted to start putting on weight because I was playing ice hockey throughout high school. And so that turned into a very deep infatuation with bodybuilding, in which by the time I had graduated high school, put hockey down, I went to go sign up for my first bodybuilding competition. And I got a massive injury about 2 weeks out where I had dropped a 400-pound barbell from the top of a deadlift on my left leg. So I went to go celebrate, throw it down. One of my straps got caught, pulled me down with it at just enough of an angle for the bar to hit my femur and slide off, which in reality, all of our most tragic events in life all have massive blessings to offer when we look at them that way. And so that was really the thing that propelled me to the state of where I'm at. And so throughout the process of having to let that bodybuilder kind of part of me die, went through a dark period of my life, started partying, doing all that stuff. And then I was brought to a water store on Long Island, in which was the first time in my life I legitimately drank clean water. And so that, I'm trying to condense 15 years into as little time.
Man, Coach, I got a lot of questions about this clean water.
Yeah, bro. So, being jacked, I also did steroids at 19 after that injury to try and, just gripping at what I knew was never going to work, but, last ditch effort kind of thing. Yeah, so that sent me into my downward spiral with all the partying. Clean water started bringing me out of it because water is by far the most important thing that we could put into our mouths beyond food, right? So clean water is immediately going to change your physiology. It's going to clear out your mind in a lot of ways. And so that was kind of my reorientation back to a health and fitness lifestyle, which from there turned into veganism and a deep dive into traditional and Kundalini yoga for a few years. And then when I was 25, my first son was born, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, what kind of a father figure am I? I'm smoking pot all day. I'm still doing a lot of psychedelics because they're clean substances, right? And just basically sobered up over the course of a few months and got back into strength training. And so strength training for me started back as calisthenics because I knew I wanted to do something different. but I didn't want to do bodybuilding because it just wrecked my body. I felt like such trash after each workout, where the 2 hours that I was so dedicated and obsessive with going into the gym left the other 22 hours of my day just inflamed and beat up and miserable, you know? So I knew I wanted to get strong, knew I wanted to get fit again, knew I wanted to also pair health with fitness, because along that journey, I went into a deep dive into the alternative health community and learned a lot, from the vegan back to non-vegan arc, which is essentially the thing that led me to the homestead where I'm raising a good chunk of my own food. And so that was where I started looking into things like FRC and steel mace and a bunch of different mobility and kind of more fringe fitness systems and topics, stuff that you don't really see in the bodybuilding and the conventional, you know, powerlifting, CrossFit kind of world. And then it was late 2019, early 2020, I found David Weck's work through someone that I was following on Instagram. And that was when I found the rope and rope flow. And rope flow changed my life within a minute of picking it up because of how it stimulates the brain. And then from there, I just deep dove through 2020, through all the gym closures and all that stuff, spending just countless hours with the rope for a good 6 months until everything opened back up. Went back to the gym, realized I was pain-free, moving better than I'd ever been, had no restrictions, no fears around various positions that used to, you know, sublux my shoulder or bother my leg or my knee or my hip or whatever. And I'm like, shit, like, where's the ceiling now, right? If a piece of rope could do this much unwinding over, you know, from age 15, where I first dislocated my shoulder, all the way through crushing my leg and everything else in between, like 6 months of time. And I feel like I'm just getting back to a starting line of like a fresh start. So that really dove me into the unconventional approach, learning about biomechanics, learning about spinal engine theory, and just really becoming obsessed with forms of strength and attributes that I always knew were capable for me, but I just couldn't develop in the conventional lens the way that I wanted to. And basically just took it off from there, where now, you know, I'm doing everything I've ever wanted to and more with little to no kind of hindrance from any of that strength that I've been gaining. Strength of an ox, prowess of a cheetah is the motto, in which the amount of strength we can progress into doesn't have any limitations to that capacity to drop and go hunt on that drop of a dime if you need to, right? Cheetahs don't stretch. I don't want to stretch to have to be ready. I don't want to have to get to the starting line every day. I just want to be able to pick it up and go do whatever I want to do in life, with family, with friends, in training, in my profession, everything else in between.
That's funny that you say that, because I once had a high school football coach that would always say, "You ever see a cheetah get up and stretch before it has to sprint or go chase down something?" No. So why y'all need to do all this stretching? Which to me, when I was like 16, I was like, "Yo, coach, you're tripping. Like, I'm gonna always stretch. Like, I need to stretch before I go do something." But
Yeah.
you know, if we take it all the way back, what did you mean by clean water? Like, because that when you think about it, like, you go to the store and you pick up a bottle of water, like you expect it to always be clean, right? Um, what do you essentially mean by like clean water being able to fix everything and whatnot?
Yeah. So, love this starting point here for the conversation. So, microplastics and plastics in general have been hitting a lot of, even more into the kind of conventional framework of understanding what's good and bad for us. And so any vessel of plastic, especially the softer plastic water bottles, the ones that will mold to the shape of the water, you're drinking water that has been put into a plastic bottle that hasn't fully cooled, and a part of the cooling process is filling it up with the water, which is exactly why you leave it in your car on a hot day for 10 minutes. And what does it taste like?
Plastic.
Because it's already in there, right? The
I feel like
coldness
the
of it.
Zani water always tastes like plastic anyway. So
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. And so that's just one piece of it, is the plastic aspect, right? The other piece of it is that all of these water companies are typically using some form of municipal or recycled, refurbished water, right? So you're using your bathroom And then that water's coming out clean on the other end on your shower cap after a whole bunch of stuff. And so the water industry is very unregulated. There's a lot of similar stuff going on where you're not actually drinking water that's coming from the ground. You're drinking this kind of like secondary, second use water that's been treated, cleaned, purified through filtration, etc. But the problem is stored in the plastic, which will turn the water acidic. So you can do a little experiment. You can go to the store and get, a regular cheap 24 pack for 8 cents a bottle or whatever it is. Get a pH tester kit and test the alkalinity of it. It's almost guaranteed it's going to be acidic. And so, a lot of people, once they start drinking real clean water, those water bottles will give them like heartburn or digestive issues, or it just won't feel like you ever actually get hydrated, because you really don't from regular water. There's a lot more than just drinking water that goes into it in terms of like getting your cells hydrated, right? Just because you drink water doesn't mean you're hydrated. So I was the guy, bro, Poland Spring from 7-Eleven, every day, gallon, just walking into the gym, going to college, going to high school, And so this water store that I went to and then eventually started working at and managing one of them, they were doing the alkaline water machines, in which I'm one of the few people who will speak out against them, because they technically electrocute the water, which is what gives them the pseudo alkaline properties. It just it's called an ionization machine, right? So it kind of disperses the bonds, which allows for more hydrogen in there, which then allows for more alkaline on a readout. High alkaline water could mess with your stomach acid, right? You're just putting out a fire, basically. Your stomach is super acidic. You're just dumping alkaline water on it. There's going to be competition there. Most people already have low stomach acid in the first place. So my set point is, if you can find clean water, you're going to not want to go the alkaline route either. And you're always going to want to store it in glass, because glass will never leach anything into the actual water. And so water, again, you can go a handful of days before you die without. Food, depending on how fat you are, you can go months potentially. So water is really one of like the primary pillars in terms of health for me, because health and fitness, for the most part, are almost void of each other within kind of the framework of from the outside in. You see someone who's super fit, but then on the other end, right, they're the guy in the gym after his 400 milligram red dye artificial flavored pre-workout, who's just it sounds like an airport, right? And it's like, cool, you're shredded on the outside, and there's certain things that don't require the qualitative aspects to achieve an outward expression of what looks good. But what looks good doesn't always mean it's actually healthy behind the scenes there. And so that, for me, coming from, a pretty drugged up, down and out part of my life, really showed me just the pure power that one thing alone can have for someone. And that was really, like I said, the big first step back to A, getting healthy, and then B, eventually melding health and fitness back together.
How does one, know that first, how do they know that they're getting good water, right? And
Sure.
clean water,
Yeah.
pure water. And then how do you hydrate the cells? Because I think that's
Yeah.
another important part that like not a lot of people don't, like, because you just said like you can drink as much water as you want to and feel hydrated, but like, are your cells also hydrated? Like, how do you know?
Yeah, there's a lot to break down in that question, and I'll give the solution for anyone looking to start incorporating clean water, and then I'll also give the kind of framework into how the cells actually get hydrated. So in terms of accessing cleaner water, right? A lot of people have in recent years gone heavy into natural spring water, where you can go there's a website called findaspring.org or .com. And that's a good place to start if you want to start really going like barefoot hippie style water procurement, right? Like, you got to take an hour drive, maybe. You got to invest in 20 gallons of glass, and you got to go there once a week. And that's part of the challenge with water, is the convenience factor of it, and then prioritizing it to a degree that rationalizes your habits to actually take an extra step to get better quality water, right? So that's kind of the first part. One of the things most people will find is natural spring water. And then from there, something that's usually pretty accessible is just a solid reverse osmosis filter. A lot of higher quality supermarkets and stuff, maybe you've seen them. I don't know how popular they are in the UK, but they'll have like a big, 6 foot by 3 foot, kind of big, almost look vending machine looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shoots reverse osmosis water out of it. And if you put that RO water in glass, you're already at a better start. The hard part about that is what that RO filter is taking your now drinking water from is municipal tap water. So there's a website called ewg.org. I know it's good in the US. I don't know if it's good internationally. But if you just Google ewg.org, one of the first links that will pop up is like a kind of like a sub page on their website, which is a tap water database. And you could type in your zip code and then find your municipality. And I promise you, looking at what your municipality perceives as safe for use, right? Because a lot of people drink their tap water. If you shower in it, all that steam is absorbing right into your skin. That's actually making it more absorbable. You're breathing it into your lungs from that steam. Most people are mouth breathing, so there's no kind of filtration going on there. And there's this massive onslaught of toxins that are coming in through multiple ways just from their tap water alone. And on Long Island, super toxic place. I mean, you're talking about carcinogenic agents in the 200x above what's considered safe levels. And again, because it's such an unregulated area of industry, they're just getting away with it. It doesn't matter. They don't care, right? They got rid of the feces. They can't get, and the crazy thing about municipal sources is a lot of the pharmaceuticals and stuff they actually can't really filter for. And so there's a lot of interesting, studies done on certain populations where there was runoff into a pond and stuff was changing in the pond just based on the runoff from the city water and lots of just really crazy stuff, man. And it's a deep rabbit hole. It can be a little bit frightening at first, but typically when it comes to information, right, it's like rather than fear, it's being informed, and then that information gives you the capacity to make an educated choice, and then do your due diligence and testing, right? Like, don't just listen to me and believe it's 100% true. Like, go source some different waters. Go start drinking out of glass. Go notice how you're sweating different, how you're thinking, how you're sleeping, how you're recovering, how you're feeling, how your mood is, right? And do your own little science experiment,
Yeah, I mean, now you got me interested because we're over here in Europe, and like now I'm thinking about, because usually over here in Europe, like they claim the water is cleaner to drink out of the tap and everything like that. Just like, especially a guy coming from Florida, like I drink out of the water hose when I was growing up, but after that, like
Me too, bro.
I
Me too.
realized that like drinking out of the tap, like it doesn't taste too good, right?
Yeah.
So now it's got me interested to look into like what it's like looking at these websites and like what the water is actually currently like. But then it leads me into like thinking about how do you get, because I know you talk about you going through breaking your leg and then going to find clean water, and then like you kind of go to psychedelics, and your son's here, and now it's leading you to more processes of like kind of finding the holistic approaches. How much research went into this, and where did you learn all this stuff from?
Yeah, my whole life has been a practical endeavor of testing, failing, retesting, figure it out in every area of my life. I really don't have any formal education other than the last 15 years of my personal pursuit for always finding better. And then whatever little side quest or tangent that was most meaningful to me at that time in my life, I would dedicate that much time into it to get to the root of what problem I was trying to solve there. I'd solve it, I'd figure it out, I'd move on. Maybe a few years later that would change and I'd have to retest and refigure it out with diet. It's so subjective and challenging to really put an objective standard on nutrition and diet, but clean water should be accessible to everyone. And that's something, again, that's like a really just like foundational staple of health. To answer the question, mostly just personal endeavor to satisfy my interests and curiosity. And before we move any further, I do want to get into the hydration aspect of things. And I want to also tie off the end of reverse osmosis water, if that's going to be the choice of the avenue of water that people start to source as a byproduct of listening to this. So RO water is essentially dead water, right? It's as close to pure H2O as possible, which can lead to a lot of problems down the road, so long as you're not properly remineralizing your body through external inputs. So, for example, the two easiest ways that you can get minerals into your body is going to be high quality sea salt, in which Icelandic sea salt is the king. I use the brand Crucial 4. I don't have any affiliation with them, but it is a little bit on the pricey side. But I promise you, you will legitimately feel better just from changing up the salt that you use. A lot of people are hooked on the pink salts. All that stuff is absolutely laden with heavy metals and other minerals that you really don't want in there. Celtic salt is a decent way to get it. You'll notice Celtic salt's typically a little bit grayer. The grayer, the less pure, but still better. And then table salt is just trash out the window. You should just never eat it. You should get your iodine elsewhere, whether that's from supplementation, seafood, seaweeds, that kind of stuff. The other supplement that I utilize, and I could plug the brand that I use, it's a supplement called Shilajit. Have you ever heard of Shilajit? Yeah. It's cranking waves in the alt health kind of, we see all these carnivore-esque, jacked young guys, biohacking types pushing a lot of Shilajit lately. I've been using it for 5 years. I've been taking 1 gram of it per day. And I personally believe it is one of the most slept on performance enhancing supplements in the entire world. Because what it does is it provides you with actually bioavailable minerals from a real earth source. So most mineral supplements, they're usually skewed to the end of sodium. They usually lack a lot of the beneficial forms of magnesium, and they're usually really low dosed with potassium as well. So it's like, yeah, it might help you a little bit, but you're really not getting the juice of the squeeze you're trying to get through a mineral supplement. So Shilajit is a resin that is essentially matter that has decayed and then processed over, thousands of years, and oozes up out of high altitude mountain ranges as this very sticky, tarish substance. And then it's purified and put into the tar, or there's resin tablets, or there's also some powders. And in that order, you're talking about least processed to most processed. So the resin out the jar is going to be the best. The pressed tablets, slightly processed just because they have to add a little bit of a binding agent to actually keep it in a tablet form, but it's much easier to dose. And then the powder is going to be the least beneficial, the cheapest, and might be beneficial for someone if they're low on cash or something like that. And so Shilajit has been studied. There's a ton of great studies that have been done on it, but essentially it has the vast majority of minerals that we do not get through our nutrition anymore. After the Industrial Revolution, acid rain, NPK fertilizer is a rabbit hole for someone to go into in terms of food. Essentially, our food has not only become mineral depleted, but mineral toxic in terms of the ratios that they're bound in. So with food, or with minerals and with vitamins, they always work in pairs. And so you need to have the pairs to have a functioning synergistic relationship and balance in your body. So not only is our food like severely depleted of minerals in general, the minerals that they do have are ones that are stripping your body of everything else that it needs because you have such an overload of them. And so that leads to a lot of health issues. And most specifically, what that will typically lead to in the long run is calcified tissues, which is what everyone feels as their creaky joints, inflammation, lack of range of motion, and so on. And so if you're going to go the RO route in glass, again, essential. The blue bottles, just because they're BPA free doesn't mean they're BPS free, right? So it's like plastic is plastic and you want to stay away from it at all costs. So invest the extra money into the glass bottle. Be careful lugging it around. I have dropped probably 30 gallons of water in my trunks over time just because the glass would break, It's pain, it's annoying, it's a nuisance, but it's worth it. And then from that standpoint, if that's the route you're going to go, you have to get high quality minerals from supplements because you're not going to find it. So Icelandic sea salt, number 1 for salt. Celtic salt will be our number 2. Shilajit is the number 1 in terms of the full spectrum mineral supplement. It also has some other stuff in there that is beneficial to your mitochondria at a cellular level that essentially helps the ATP cycle function more at an optimum level. And then the other one would be sea moss, Irish moss. That's another popular one. That one's decent, but I do find Shilajit, bar none, out of my years of experimentation and putting it onto friends, it's incredible. And some of the benefits of Shilajit is, if you think about it this way, you have trillions of cells in your body. Each one of those cells requires the functioning mitochondria to actually produce the energy. If you don't have the substances in your body to actually functionally produce that, which minerals hold the keys to all enzymatic processes. So if you have mineral-rich nutrition, all of your processes are catalyzed because those minerals are turning on those enzymes that are allowing everything to flow optimally. So as a byproduct, you get this global energy increase. Again, not from like slamming a coffee, slamming an energy drink. It's your cells are now running on high octane fuel rather than crude oil, right? And as a byproduct, you're going to be sleeping better. You're going to have better energy levels. You're going to be training harder. You're going to be recovering faster. And in terms of testosterone, it's been shown something like between a 200 to 400 nanograms per deciliter boost, I think in like 90 days of 400 or 600 milligrams of Shilajit, and just tons of other benefits for it. One of the ways that all of it works as well is through the extracellular matrix, which is our fascia, which is kind of tying into the hydration point where movement is a big way to actually get your body hydrated. High quality, biomechanically sound movement is one of the best ways to stimulate lymphatic movement, overall fluid movement, pressure from the organs and everything out. And then from there, again, if you have kind of your mineral and hydrations kind of set from high quality standpoints, like all of that just kind of boosts that along. I think that's the rant. Yeah, not all of them are going to be made equally. It ain't going to be on Amazon. Yeah. The brand that I use and have used for the last 5 years is called MitoLife. The website is mitolife.co. I do have a coupon code there, ET Strength. All of the supplements there, I stand by. I've used for years on and off for some of them in various times when I'm working on different stuff. But Shilajit is the non-negotiable supplement in my life, period. Yeah. So rope flow, the way that I characterize it, is it's a movement practice that synergizes your brain and your body. And it also helps you understand the fundamental biomechanics of what's considered to be the spinal engine theory. And so with getting into rope flow, all you need is a rope that's going to be about 1 pound. Are you there, Coop? Okay, cool. Yeah. I just want to make sure we're still on. So with rope flow, you need some feedback from the rope in terms of the weight in order to actually get that loop going where we're using the proximal core to drive the movements, where something like a jump rope just wouldn't really do the job. And so it's based on 4 fundamental patterns in which most everyone has seen in like jump rope tricking style people. And that is one of the differences in jump rope tricking versus rope flow. One, you don't jump through the rope in rope flow. You jump with the rope, or you move synergistically with the rope. So when I'm going down with my hands with the rope, there's a drop in my tension. And as I'm coming up and over with the rope, there's a lift and then a transition of my tension. So every single rep revolves around rotational movement of the body. It's one of the best low barrier for entry, low impact movement practices that every single person in the world could benefit from for 2 reasons. 1 being the benefits of the brain, 2 being the benefits of the biomechanics that you garner in the practice of rope flow. You could practice with any rope. You could practice with an elastic band if you've never had it. And again, there's 4 basic moves. And it's all based around figure 8 movements of the hands and figure 8 movements of the remainder of the joints that work in synergy together to create this fluid, repetitious, essentially never-ending movement practice. So I was just looking for answers, and I approached rope flow very skeptically because, again, I was from that standpoint of like, okay, yeah, it looks cool, but seems kind of weird, and I'm probably going to suck at it, so why should I even really bother trying it? But I bought the WEC method rope, and I kept it in the box until I took it to the gym one day, and I literally watched the YouTube little, 1-minute training video that it came with. And I just decided I was going to try it as like something to keep me moving in between sets. And so I took it in on a pull day, and I was warming up with sets of pull-ups. And historically, my first set of pull-ups was always my best set of pull-ups. And so I did my first set of what's called the race and chase, which is this 2-hand overhand figure 8 pattern. And I just did it for 1 minute in between sets. And on my second set, not only did I get more reps at a lower perceived level of exertion, but I also felt the left side of my body working in a way that I essentially had been craving and just could not get it to do in my entire life, trying to find those answers through yoga, through other functional systems, through everything else I had done. And a lot of that has to do, again, with the benefits that it has for the brain, right? So within a minute, I made more tangible, internal, sensational progress than I had in what seemed like years of trying other things, right? Manual therapy, massage, active release technique, everything, the myofascial release, slam and crush your tissues till they're bruised kind of approach, And I just knew from that moment, like, holy shit, there's got to be some serious value to this tool because, again, in 60 seconds, like what it did for me was just tremendous. And I didn't understand it. And so that led me into a little bit of a deeper rabbit hole into like neurokinesiology, right? So how our brain impacts our movement capacity. And so because rope flow is this rotational movement practice that forces our hands to go past our midline for many, 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 many reps with little to no fatigue. That midline crossing pattern is very special for the brain. So we have 2 hemispheres in our brain, and within each of those hemispheres, we have 2 dedicated areas to sensing, perceiving, and moving through our environment, being the sensory cortex and the motor cortex, right? So sensory being information in, motor cortex being movement capacity out. So it's an in-out loop. And when we cross our hands through the midline, for example, if I take my right hand to my left side, my left brain controls my right hand, right? So my left brain is working to get my right hand across my body, but my right brain controls my left eye. And so I'm sensing the visual input of my right hand, which is controlled by the left brain, by my left eye, which is controlled by the right brain on the left side of my body, while my left hand is on the other side trailing along for that 1 figure 8 rep. See where I'm going so far? Yeah. So, bro, all you got to do is this. You could do it even without the rope. Just this. This pattern alone, this figure 8 movement, thumb could lead it. That's the overhand variation. Or you could reverse it and the pinky could lead it. That's the underhand variation. Stimulates your brain to a tremendous degree because those two areas of our brains care a lot about our hands. So there is a visual representation, essentially, of these 2 areas, where if I were to look in the mirror to my side, if I actually looked the way my brain, through the sensory and motor cortexes, perceives my body, my hands would be about 60 times larger than anything else on my body other than my face. Right? So what that tells us is in terms of sensing our environment and moving through our environment, which we could call proprioception, my brain cares and receives a lot of information, input, and feedback from my hands. And so if I can organize my brain through the input of my hands with a freaking piece of rope, now all of a sudden, the staticky input signal of the radio from all my injuries in the past just got a little bit clearer after a minute. And then even clearer after a month, and even clearer after 6 months, and even clearer after 5 years. And so not only do we get that brain input, right? But we're also tapping into all three primary aspects of proprioception. As I'm moving the rope from side to side, I get the peripheral visual feedback and the midline feedback because I'm watching and I'm seeing the rope pass my eyes. I get audible feedback from it tapping the ground rhythmically. And then I also get the tangible somatic feedback of feeling the rope moving around my body from me using my muscles to make it happen. So it's this multi-dimensional, high brain stimulating, low impact, easy activity where you could just put a freaking piece of rope in someone's hands and all of a sudden the signal is clearer. And when we have better proprioception, we are far less likely to get hurt because we are more confident in navigating our environment and taking in the information that surrounds our environment. And in terms of like pain is a very complex signal. And if that input is putting your body into a space of fear or unsafety, well, whatever that pain signal is going to be amplified. And so sometimes just working through visual and sensory input, right? Inner ear vestibular system gets in there as well. You could see like years of progress made in someone's movement capacity, pain reduction, range of motion in a matter of legitimate seconds, like not even minutes of time, depending if it's the right input for the right person at the right time, which requires knowledge, study, application, everything else in between. But the rope covers so many baseline facets of that world of training that it's just, to me, it's like, why wouldn't you pick up a rope and swing it around? Even if you're a bodybuilder, especially if you're an athlete and you know, elderly population and everyone else in between. Yeah, a lot of what I have been doing essentially, right, I think it's the Bruce Lee saying, right, take what is useful and discard the rest kind of thing. And so for me, it's been take what's practical and what works and then move on and then refine that over time. So some of my big mentors in terms of the rotational movement in the training sphere has been David Weck himself. I've developed a friendship and a relationship with him over the past 5 years. And so that's really been one of my guideposts for training and biomechanics. In terms of the neurokinesiology side of things, I've had a couple sessions recently with my buddy Ryan from Square One System. Very interesting system, but does absolute wonders. There's also a big brand called Z Health. And then I have some friends of mine in San Diego at 10 Fitness who have been doing some really awesome stuff over the last few years that has inspired me as well. And so those are kind of the 3 or 4 really big picture kind of guide lamps for me with what I've been getting into as a coach and helping my clients out and in my own personal journey. Because for me, it's like I need to put this into practice in order to know that there's a potential that it could help someone else. So I approach my coaching from a very like I can only take you as far as I have gone kind of framework. Rather than I can take you as much as I know. And there's value to both, and there's definitely both sides of that in my practice and in my coaching. But in general, again, a lot of it, bro, has just been trial and error and research and applying and testing and figuring it all out in the long term. Yes, I'm still figuring that out, bro. I would say, if not, yeah, all of my clients have either been following me for some time, or they have gone through similar things as me that they see some kind of capacity for guidance and getting over the hurdles in their life, whether it's movement or otherwise. And in terms of like turning someone cold to warm with this kind of stuff, the less information, the better, and the more application, the better. And so it's really just a matter of getting them to do it and to feel it, because once they do it and once they feel it, they can't unfeel it, they can't forget it, and then that becomes a seed that grows over time. In the fitness world, right, a lot of it is very aesthetic driven, and so, right, if you don't have an impressive physique, why should I listen to you, kind of thing. And that's obviously a very limited scope of learning in life, because we could learn something from every single person that we walk by. And so for me, a lot of the process has just been developing my own capacity to do all the things that I talk about to a degree that's impressive enough for my own personal gain, that then as a byproduct would help in convincing and swaying opinion in other people to try new things. Because with fitness, with diet, with nutrition, with lifestyle things, something that's really hard to kind of humble yourself into doing is understanding that you want to be right in what you're doing with your own body. It's one of the last autonomous things we have available to us, with no privacy, everything digitized, and everything in between, right? And so it's very hard. Like, if you ask an overweight person what they eat, they're going to lie to you, because they want to be right. And really, it's coming from a good place, because they want to try and impress and they want to try and make themselves feel good. But like, that kind of dismantling and deeper introspection has to be present to one degree or another to try anything new, counter to the main narrative, or anything of that nature, right? So a lot of it is from people who have been like, yeah, they bought a rope, they tried it out, they feel it. Maybe they buy my course, it does really good for them, and then they want to get into deeper training with me with actual strength-based stuff, right? And so I'm not here to convince anyone, really, and that's kind of my approach to it. I'm not here to change anyone's minds. Everything that I do on my page is simply my opinion that I've formulated over years of practice, application, and trying it with other people. And if you, not being you personally, but you on the other side of it, want to see it, make fun of it, judge it, whatever, like, I'm just not for you yet, maybe, or not ever, and I don't care, right? I just want to help the people that I know I can help, and there has to be that genuine curiosity and interest in trying new things before I even have a chance of persuasion. And a part of my job is like creating enough content, showing it enough lenses, speaking about it in a million different ways to make it palatable and understandable to someone who has that door just cracked open in their mind, where it might, the light might sneak in there. Awesome. Absolutely. As anyone who coaches physicality, whether that is a particular sport, whether that's general preparedness in terms of fitness, whether that is a bodybuilding coach, it doesn't matter what. Like, you can't fake physical education. I'm not going to listen to an overweight, morbidly obese politician about what they believe their dietary guidelines should be for the culture when you clearly don't look the part. So like, basically, like, you can't fake it. And so if you can't fake it, you have to dig and dig and dig and dig personally in your own practice to develop enough confidence in yourself to then be able to put that on a platform and sell it as a service, right? So like, I will never take a client through anything I have never done. There's no point in me doing that. I don't know it. I can't feel it, right? Right. There's kind of like a wordplay, understanding, or like, you understand. You see what I'm saying? You are the source that the knowledge is on top of, right? And so if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard for you, or you're just going to create some kind of shallow, potentially successful version of your dreams and business, And so authenticity, curiosity, research, time under the practice, right? Like, time under tension in all ways, right? Like, it kind of cracks me up. You see these like 23-year-old life coaches, and it's like, bro, like, you're, I personally, that's something that will be in my coaching arc, but I don't feel until like my 40s that's even a viable thing outside of specific skill sets, fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, right? But like all the other stuff, man, you need the experience to build something meaningful, and you have to stand behind that knowing you did all the work, right? Okay. All right, fun. One word answer. Let's go. Raw milk, beach, cats, morning. Amateur MMA guys, Tahiti. Fuck, man. Odd lifts, winter, perfectionism. Ooh, lift, language. Yeah, my pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me on.